So let's just go for a quick test flight. We're on the ground at Van Nuys. We're going to go up to Agua Dulce L70, and I'll do it from cold and dark to cold and dark. I'm not going to do the checklists. We'll do that later in a later video, just to show the whole spread of the panel. But for now, I just want to get a flavour of things. So let's do that. So everything's off. Control locks are off. Put the anti-collision beacon on. We want the DC master on. That shouldn't come on with the DC master. We need to fix that. It should come on now through the battery. I'm not sure what that roaring noise is. There's nothing should be going that's making that noise. That's a feature of the Twin Otter. So we will put on the right fuel pump. We should have unfettered the props. What I need to do now is spin up these gauges are on the left hand side in my cockpit just for historical reasons. They should be on the right hand side, the engine gauges. This makes me makes it a little bit difficult starting the engine. It's like playing Twister. Use my left arm to spin it up. I've got to look over here at the gas generator RPM. When it gets over 12%, I can put the fuel in. There it goes. Fuel pump for the left engine, same deal. Spin the engine up. Looking for 12. Fuel in. There we go. You can see the T5s and the torques coming up. The oil pressure's stabilised. The oil temperatures have stabilised. Gas generators RPM stabilised. We can put the generators on so we get the indicators will go out in front of us. We've got low pneumatic pressure. Put the bleed air switches on. That won't go out until we get sufficient RPM on the gas generator. The gyro's coming up. We could pull the quick erect. We're not going to bother with that. It's nearly spun up. We can have the radios on, so we can see the GPS coming on. The other radios are on the panel down there, which we can't see. These radios don't respond to these controls. They come on with the DC master. That radio should be initialized. If I just toggle the frequency swapper there, that radio is redundant really, because we've got everything on the GNS 530. Okay, so what are we doing? Let's do two things. We'll put in fact we've got in the Van Nuys VOR already on nav 1, 113.1. So if I press CDI, we get the nav flag goes away. If we what should we do? Well, let's not do anything with that. We'll do that, play with that when we get up in the air. We're going to go to Agua Dulce L70, so if I look for that on the nearest airport, and we'll dial it in just as a convenience. There it is. There it is. I'll put it as direct to. We're not going to go direct to, but once it's in we can reset that easily once we're airborne. So I think we're just about ready to go. We'll put in let's put in 5,500 feet on the altitude target. Now there's airspace around here, and of course if we were flying on pilot edge we'd be doing, we'd be talking to ATC and negotiating the airspace properly. If we take off, let's see, on runway 34 and just fly runway heading, keep below 3,000 feet for a little while, follow the road, and when we get to the pass on the right hand side we can start to climb. So that's what we're going to do. So we're going to just do that. Let's not do too much more talking. I assume all my trims are set. In fact, let's just make sure that's the case. Yeah, my FSX trim is set, so let's go. So we're going to taxi out for 34. I think it's 34. 1634. That's a nice DC3, I think, there. Oops, need to look where I'm going. Now, what should we do? We could attempt an intersection takeoff. I'm not sure how far down the runway we are. Let's not do that. Let's go up to the end. So I'm checking as I go. The HSI is rotating appropriately. The only thing we're really using in the virtual cockpit now, apart from the superstructure, is the magnetic compass, which you can just see down there. Everything else is on our panel. I'm going a bit fast for taxiing here. Shouldn't really be taxiing this fast. Alright, let's get onto the runway here. That's my... oh, what's going on with my track IR? Maybe it's because I've got the GoPro there. It's interfering a little bit. Doesn't seem to be too bad, so... okay, 3-4 left. Doesn't appear to be anybody on approach. It's a nice wide runway. The one we're heading for, Agua Dulce, is much narrower, so we're not going to have any problems getting off here. Let's have first stage of flaps. Right, we're going to have Otter feather selected. Oh, that's a bit unfortunate. We've got opposing traffic, so we're not doing this strictly correctly by the book, but here we go. So I'm watching the engine instruments. I'm just doing the torque and temp limits by eye here. I'm spinning them up as far as I can without going into the red zone. So there you go, we're rolling. We've got Otter feather is armed. And because I've got the Iris force feedback yoke, it's coming back on its own. I've got some juddering going. I'm looking at the speed. Speed's good now. Start to pull back gently, and we're off. We're just going to leave the yoke alone, let that speed build up a bit. We're going to go for, we're at 90 knots, so IAS hold, heading, go on to autopilots. Get the flaps in, can take the Otter feather off now. Just for now, we're going to stay on runway heading. I'm going to put altitude hold in because of that airspace. I can't remember quite what the height restriction is here, but if you look on the GPS, we're under a bit of airspace. Of course, we're accelerating pretty quick now. I'll come back a bit with that power. We don't want to overspeed. Oh, that track IR is glitching a little bit. I don't like that. No. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually follow this highway over here, over to this little gap, and then go kind of round the corner. So we're clearing the airspace now. We can start to go up again, and I'll put us initially for 4,000, I think, altitude alert. 4,000 on the target. And you can see that road junction over here as it disappears off into the road disappears off into the hills. That's where we're going. I just reset that direct to, zoom out a little bit. So it's a nice clear evening. We don't have any weather to worry about. Got a little bit of a crosswind from the right at the minute, but that's inconsequential. If we put in that Van Nuys VOR, well, we have it in. If I centre it up on the HSI, whoops, you can see we're on the 338 or something radial, which is about what we expect. The VOR is pretty much on the airport, or on the threshold. Okay, so we're kind of clear of the hills now. If I just reset that direct to one more time, make sure we're on GPS, then we can go on to nav, hold. So we've got nav capture right away. Aircraft's turning. If you look at the flight director bar, that's following the autopilot as well. Just looking at the temperature, sorry, the engine gauges, we're a bit lopsided there. We're just creeping into the amber on the T5s, which we don't really want to do. Alright, Agudolce is 11.6 miles away. And it's pretty much dead ahead. It's probably that little bunch of buildings over there that you can see. We're not going to be cruising for more than a few minutes here, but I'm going to come back on the props, so we'll see the torques going up, the prop RPMs going down. We want to keep them in the green arc, but as low as we can without over torquing, and then we get the best fuel flow for the money. Of course, in real life we'd be reducing vibrations and smoothing out resonance frequencies and stuff like that, but that's not really simulated here. So again, we can keep a cross check on where we're going by cross checking the GPS with the VOR. In real life we'd probably encounter a lot of traffic here, because this is I suppose a fairly natural corridor for heading up this way. Quite a lot of hills around, and if we're following that road, we should be, I think we're supposed to fly to the right of a line feature. What else? We're above 300 feet AGL, so, or are we? 3,000 feet rather. I don't think we are actually, so we don't have to worry about the hemisphere altitude rule. So there's the airport coming up just here. We'll just do we'll enter on the base leg. What's the runway orientation? 0422. So we're going to enter. We're going to land on 04, and we're going to kind of on a 45-degree for base leg, or maybe a straight in. And the elevation of this airport's 2,600 feet. So we're just a little bit above circuit height here, really. So let's go forward on the props. We're going to start to come down kind of gradually. I'm going up there by mistake. I'm going to come off nav, put it onto heading hold. In fact, we need to probably descend a bit quicker than this. Oh, track IR, don't fail me now. Let's come off autopilot, in fact. So we need to slow down now, get some flaps out. Let's put the landing lights on. Let's have auto feather. We don't really need that. It's not going to actually do us any good, but you know, in practice we might be using that as a safety measure. Not sure if you use auto feather on the approach. It doesn't arm obviously until you push the power forward. So it only comes into play if you're going to be doing a go around. But if we do a go around and we have engine failure, we certainly in real life would want the auto feather. So this is a reasonable approach unless I dip too much further. I've gone out of the white arc there. I've got some flaps down and I've gone out of the white arc, so that's not really correct. The windsock, is that a windsock? I'm not even sure. It's showing a bit of a crosswind from the left, is it? I'm not sure if that is even a wind. It's not a windsock. Now there's a displaced threshold here as well, so we need to not land too short. That track IR is picking the wrong time to bugger about. Okay, speed's pretty good. We're going to land a little bit short actually. Alright. Too much talking, not enough flying. Let's go with the reverse. Missed that taxiway. Can we get this one? We will if we stop dead. Okay. We can turn off here. Bit of a sharp turn. Should really have taxi lights on. Whoops. And landing lights off. Nice little helicopter there. These are kind of small taxiways for a big plane like this. But we're managing. Where should we go? We'll go up to the end. In fact, some fuel pumps there. In fact, we could just park here. Let's do that. Let's pretend this is our hangar. Now I'm not planning to park on the taxiway, but we've got reverse thrust here, don't forget. That's not in the book. Okay, there we go. So we've got parking brake on. What are we going to do now? We're going to turn off the, got landing lights are off, flaps are up, taxi lights off. We've got to feather the props. If we look down here, we see that happen. Then we can pull the fuel, turn off the fuel pumps, turn off the generators, turn off the lights, turn off the radios, battery off, DC master off, control locks on. There you go, cold and dark to cold and dark.